And it's 9:33. Now, despite hours of testimony and looking through 1,500 pages of documents, the Foreign Affairs Select Committee has concluded it still doesn't know the full story of how Peter Mandelson was made British ambassador to Washington. The committee's chair, Labour's Dame Emily Thornberry, has concluded the appointment was, quote, an unmitigated disaster. She joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Kate.
You obviously have said very clearly that we don't know the full story, but are you able to tell us some of the biggest gaps in our knowledge about how this appointment happened and why we should still be concerned about them?
The biggest gap is that, well, I think it's quite clear from the evidence that Number 10 pushed this really, really fast and was pushing all opposition out of the way. And did it in the wrong order so that they ended up doing the security vetting right at the end once everybody knew that Mandelson had got the job, once he was on the payroll, once the president had agreed to it and the king had agreed to it and everything else. And then it was like almost the afterthought was the security vetting. So the Foreign Office is under huge pressure to pass him through the security vetting, but there are concerns raised. So then the question is, what does the Foreign Office do? It could just decide, oh, well, clear that Number 10 wants it, so we're just going to just push it through and hope nobody, we can bury the fact that there's been security concerns raised. Or they decided that they were going to put mitigations in place, something in place that was going to make sure that it was safe to appoint Peter Mandelson. But we haven't seen anything which shows that the Foreign Office did that, or if they did it, what it was they did. And there may be two reasons for that. Number one is we've seen that it's quite clear that the Foreign Office's record keeping on this was terrible. But secondly, probably the most important documents are still with the police. So I think it's important that we find out whether it was just Number 10, it was Number 10 who were prepared to kind of push this through and seemed to show little concern for the security aspects, or whether the Foreign Office, led by Ollie Robbins, were also kind of trying to push it under the carpet.
How much responsibility should the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, shoulder for what happened, in your view?
Well, I think that he has shouldered responsibility. He has said that he was responsible. I personally think that the person who was really pushing it was his chief of staff, who was, a protege of Peter Mandelson. And I think that probably Keir's fault was that he allowed Morgan McSweeney the space to do it and didn't closely supervise what was going on. I mean, looking at the papers, kind of Keir seems to be pretty absent from what has been going on. Now, it is his overall responsibility, and I'm not saying that he isn't overall responsible, but I think the pushing of it, the pushing of other candidates out of the way in which the timetable was set up and so on, I think is just having seen it and just trying to put it together and make some sense of it. I think the only sensible explanation for it all is that it was Morgan.
You mentioned Ollie Robbins there. Should he get his job back, in your view?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
I don't think so. I mean, I know other people think otherwise, so I'm not speaking on behalf of the whole committee on this. I don't think he should get his job back because I think that I don't believe that he didn't know that there weren't security concerns, because he said that there were supposed to be mitigations put in place. But as I say, I've never been able to understand what mitigations could have been put in place that would have meant Mandelson would have been safe. I think that he did know there were concerns, and he didn't tell the Prime Minister either at the time, or tell anyone else either at the time. Or in September, when the other revelations came out or started to come out, he continued to allow politicians to go out and say that the due process was followed, that everything was fine. And his answers to me were, I mean, like I said at the time, I wrote a letter and he also gave evidence to us. And it was like I would say to you, I had to run to work this morning, but I missed out the bit about being chased by a bear. I mean, I just don't think that he was properly candid. I don't think he properly explained. And I think that you need to have civil servants who you can trust and who will tell you even things that, you may not want to hear.
Did you feel like the state was trying to prevent you from getting to the bottom of this?
I think it's more complicated than that. I think some bits of the state wanted us to get to the bottom of it and some bits of the state didn't.
And are those bits of the state that didn't still in there, still operating, still powerful?
No, most of them are not.
OK. What's your advice for Andy Burnham, who is obviously going to be making his own appointments in the coming weeks and months?
Well, I think the first thing is, and he doesn't need my advice on this. I mean, I think any politician would normally know this. If you're Prime Minister, you have huge power of patronage and you need to be overseeing it. And to be honest, it does you a favor, because if you give someone a job and you look them in the eye and you go, I'm giving you this job, you will have loyalty to that person. This is how you build teams, and they know who their boss is. If you give that responsibility to somebody else, then it starts getting more confused. And I think that he did a lot. I think that Keir did a lot of that with his chief of staff. I don't think that Andy Burnham would make that kind of very basic mistake. But I think also, if you're going to make a political appointment to a position of ambassador, as opposed to a career diplomat, you want to have somebody with a bit of kind of extra added value because they're a politician in some way, then they should appear before the Foreign Affairs Committee. They should answer our questions so the public know why we are having a politician or a political appointment for a particular post as opposed to a career diplomat.
You have been touted as someone who... Oh, go on.
Sorry. And to be honest, if that had happened with Peter Mandelson, I mean, just in case, we would have Googled him. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we would have looked up what the concerns were about and put them to him in public, and then he may have answered them honestly, or he might not have, but at least we would all know what we were dealing with at that point. Because at the moment we've just got him saying, oh well, I answered all the questions properly, and other people saying he didn't, and the police saying we've got the papers, and so we just don't know.
People talk about you as somebody who we may see in the cabinet in the coming weeks. Would you accept a job from Andy Burnham?
I think I've got a really good job, to be honest, at the moment. I am elected by the whole of Parliament. I'm accountable to the whole of Parliament, and I've got it until the end of this Parliament. So actually, of all the MPs that you're likely to speak to from the Labour benches, I'm probably the most relaxed because I've got a good job. I'm not worried I'm about to get sacked. I'm not worried that I might, get a promotion. I have what I have. But in the end, if Andy wants to talk to me about something, I'm all ears.
And just finally, Count Binface running against Nigel Farage in Clacton. Would you vote Binface? Should Labour voters in that constituency vote Binface? What would you say to them?
I don't think that people should indulge Nigel Farage in this. I think this is just an attempt to get attention, to distract people, to have a sort of split screen summer, so that half of it is Nigel Farage and his dramas and the other half is Andy Burnham. I think that this is I think the fact that he's now just going to have to fight a bin is due punishment, really.
Emily Thornberry, thank you very much for joining us. She is, of course, currently the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee.